I'd like to talk a little bit about senior executive service. And I understand, Mr. Neffinger, that the bonuses that were paid to the former assistant administrator happened before your watch, but there was $90,000 in bonuses paid to the assistant administrator of the Office of Security Operations at the same time that all of those tests were failing, that the IG was conducting the tests and showing that 67 out of 70 weapons got through. And those bonuses were paid in a way to hide them. They were paid over time, obviously, clearly exceeding a 20% cap. I know that you have made changes to make sure that doesn't happen again, but this is really a symptom of this SES service, I think, and the lack of reform that has occurred with the senior executive service. I like to point out every time I get a chance on the record how senior executive service began. And it began, frankly, as an idea that I think the chairman would agree with, that you need to get talent in management and government. So the idea is you would hire competitive with the private sector, and these managers would go from agency to agency and get expertise. Well, that's long since been abandoned. These are people who've burrowed in one agency, that hang out long enough to figure out how to get SES, and then they get paid a lot more, and this is where we've seen a lot of abuse in terms of bonuses. So let me ask you this, with your reforms, is there any connection to bonuses paid on whether the agency is succeeding? You know, in the private sector, the bonus pool changes based on how the company did. And that's not been the way in government. I don't think anybody looking objectively at TSA over the last couple of years would say that the bonus pool should be really big. So are you now tying bonuses to the performance of the agency and not just performance of the individual?
It's a combination of both now, and I want to just also preface it by, or add that I've severely limited both the type and the number of bonuses that can be handed out in an agency, and I've put controls on it above me. My concern was that the agency had the ability to independently assign bonuses. I now require department oversight for that, and I've asked the department to do that. So I'm a strong believer in controls. I believe that there's a need to have the ability to give bonuses when people have done good work. I mean, you want to keep good people in government. So the notion and the practice of bonuses is not necessarily a bad one, but it has to be managed carefully, it has to be controlled, and it has to be appropriate.
Because if you look at the data, no one could objectively look at the data and say that TSA has high marks in terms of the things you look at in management, in terms of morale and you know, there just is on all the measurements out there. So I just am hoping, I think you're trying to do better in that regard. I think we need to look at SES reform in a larger capacity, not just at TSA, but I think there's just a lot of issues with senior executive service.